2 months ago, I put 2 full-frame Sony cameras together to make one super camera. This is the weirdest thing I've ever made. But there was a problem. I could only ever get one image in focus at a time, and it wasn't always the same image. Kind of confusing. So today we're going to attempt to fix that problem and see if we can't get the first 24 by 72 millimeter digital frame image. Let's give it a shot. After the first video I published, I got a lot of comments about different ways I could build a dual camera setup like this, and some of them were really clever. But first I have to address the most common comment, which was, why not just put 2 cameras side by side next to each other? Wouldn't that be way easier? And I actually tried this years ago with 2 identical point and shoot cameras mounted to a special mount I made out of scrap metal. I was terrible at building things then and not much better now. The problem here, when you put 2 cameras side by side and try to stitch together the images, is called parallax, and it's actually really easy to demonstrate. Think of these 2 cameras as your 2 eyes. So hold an object up in front of your eyes, it could even just be your hand, and then close one eye, look at it, then switch, and keep staring at it. The object or your hand is going to appear to move left and right. It actually looks like it's moving, but of course it's not moving at all, just the perspective is. And your brain amazingly is able to stitch those 2 images together with that parallax problem and give us a pretty accurate depth perception here of where the object actually is if I reach out and touch it. Because of this problem, you'd be way better off taking a single camera and just rotating it slightly to take a panoramic shot. But then in my case, it wouldn't be the same shot given at the same time. It'd be 2 different shots taken at different rotations. I wanted a single image from a lens as if we just have one massive sensor, which I know practically doesn't change anything, but we're just playing around here, okay? But then some of you had ideas to mount the cameras completely differently than I did. Some of you suggested instead of using mirrors to use a prism system, which sounds cool and has promise. Some of you suggested to use beam splitters, which are special mirrors that let half the light go straight through and the other half go over at an angle. And this is most likely found inside of a rangefinder. And it's actually also how my Minolta RD3000 works. If you remember from my video, or if you haven't seen it, there are actually 2 separate digital sensors in that camera, and it uses a combination of mirrors, prisms, and beam splitters to get the image to both sensors. If you haven't seen that video and you're a nerd, you should definitely check it out. It's very cool. So that would be super cool to try. The disadvantage with beam splitters is you lose some of the light. Now, some of you suggested simply changing the angle of the mirrors like this, so I could adjust the placement of my cameras. And I might try this idea in the future because it's simple enough and should work well enough. But back to the focusing problem we had the first time. I actually discovered the source of this problem quite quickly, and as some of you guessed, it was a mirror alignment issue. This is the body you saw in the first video. If you look really closely, you can see that the mirrors are slightly different heights. And this was totally my fault, not the 3D printers. What happened is I had these other cheap mirrors I bought from a craft store that I measured for, and I measured their thickness. But then, like some of you suggested way back when I did the waist level viewfinder video, I should use higher quality first surface mirrors. So I ordered first surface mirrors and they were a different thickness. So it threw off my measurements. First surface mirrors, by the way, are better for precision work. Basically, the difference is the light reflects directly off the first surface of the glass versus going through a little bit of glass and then reflecting off the back. So you get rid of things like ghosting and other problems. The more you know, I didn't know earlier this year. So the fix I'm gonna try is to redo my measurements and make some adjustments on the 3D model to fit my larger mirrors. And this looks pretty good already. I think this will work. Some of you also noticed this gap in between the mirrors in the middle and were wondering if that causes a problem. Well, I'll get to that in a minute. But first, this camera looks terrible. Let's make it look better. For being a photographer, I'm really not that good at designing things to look good, but we have to make this look better than like a teeth pipe fitting and give the camera a real name too. Because it's the month of Halloween and also we have this new movie coming out soon, I decided to try something out I've wanted to try for a long time now. On my 3D model, I cut out little grooves all over the body. And I know I said I would grow up one day out of this children's modeling software. And I'm working on it, I promise, okay? I'm learning some professional software. And these grooves are the perfect size for L wire to snap into place. Electroluminescent wire, or L wire, is a flexible and constant light source used for fancy costumes and crafts. I'm not sure if anyone's used it on a camera yet, but here we are. It still needs a name though, so if you have any suggestions, let me know the perfect name for this monstrosity. But now that we have a redesign and a potentially fixed mirror alignment issue, it's time to take it outside and give it a test. Even though this setup is a monster with 2 full-frame camera bodies, the custom body I built, a 6x7 Takumar lens, which is huge and heavy, shutter releases, batteries, and more, it all still fits nicely into this compact sling bag, which I want to show off for a minute. This is the Urban Wander 08 sling camera bag from K&F Concepts. And what's awesome about it is not only is it great for a small carry camera item and lenses and whatever else you can fit in it, it's actually sneaky big. And I got it because I wanted an alternative to my camera backpacks, which I also love, but are really much too big for simple daily tasks. This is the type of bag for photographers who want to carry a camera, a few lenses, but don't want the bulk of an entire backpack. But then the great part is there's actually a lot of room in here. 2 side pockets for water bottles or other quick grab gear, a front zipper pocket, this rear slip pocket in the back. On the inside, you have a nice soft section with a divider for your camera gear, plus 2 interior pockets. K&F Concepts is your one-stop shop for all your camera gear, tripods, lens adapters, and much more. I've used their gear for years and have always been a fan. Check out the link in my description to check them out, and a big thanks for sponsoring this project. And now that we're outside, we're ready to test this camera out. Okay, so this will be the main one I use to focus because that one's upside down. I forgot to bring my monitor, so no external monitoring. I'm going to try to keep them both at the same settings. We'll try auto and see where that gets us. Trying to find a nice composure. Let's do something a little bit more infinity. It's very hard to compose when you're looking at half the frame at a time. Where'd my trigger go? Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Okay, we're gonna go for the crackle on the pond. It's a really neat texture. Still kind of getting a weird tilt effect on what's in focus. Not 100% sure why that's happening. Okay, so as you can see, we still have some problems, but that main mirror alignment issue doesn't seem to be a problem anymore. We've just discovered new problems. Because the camera body mount is 3D printed and it doesn't quite lock in the same way as an official metal mount would, this lens locking tension button actually pushes one side of the camera away from the body ever so slightly, 0.5 millimeter or a millimeter. And that's enough to cause a tilt shift effect on the images where either the left or the right of a single image is out of focus. And this seems to be more of an issue on the original Sony a7 than the Sony a7 II, where the spring, I guess, isn't as strong. And oh yeah, you may have noticed I'm not using matching Sony a7 IIs this time. I'll explain that in a minute. The short-term solution to this problem is if I wiggle the camera bodies around enough, that effect is minimized. But the long-term solution, I think, would be to completely redesign these mounts to lock in more accurately, or even better and probably easier as a solution, just use metal mounts off of existing lenses and screw those onto the body. And then there's another problem that kept coming up that's related to this. And this is where the camera bodies kept being knocked off rotation. Either camera body being rotated even slightly off facing the mirror directly causes the image to shift dramatically in orientation, like in this example. Having more accurate mounts should fix this problem as well, but also maybe just paying more attention and to stop bumping the cameras as much. Okay, so with these results in mind, I'm gonna head back out and see one last time if we can get something actually usable here. This whole setup always takes a few minutes to get set up out of the bag, but while I'm setting it up, let me explain the difference between the Sony a7 and a7 II and why I'm using different cameras this time around. This is the original Sony a7, this is the a7 II. My last a7 II, my second copy, was busted when I got it, and none of the buttons worked other than the shutter button. But I was able to return it thanks to MPB's great return policy. Not sponsored, but maybe one day. But then when I was looking to buy a second one, I was looking more into the original Sony a7. It uses the same sensor, the same processor, it's just a different body design. There's no IBIS, but clearly that's not an issue here. But then the two main reasons I picked it up is it's a whole lot cheaper, and also I thought it'd just be fun to try out the original a7. I never have. I got 1/60th, 1/60th. Let's get this in focus. This does seem a little scawampus. So I don't know how well you can see, but I just want to illustrate this. Here's what happens when I tilt the camera to the left or right. You see how that changes the frame? I mean, obviously, but that's what's happening, but at a very, very teeny tiny level that's really hard to keep balanced because the mounts just are not perfectly locking in place. The other thing is, you can barely see this, I don't know how well. There's a slight shift that I was talking about earlier, and you can just see it affecting focus ever so slightly as I push the camera in and out towards the camera body. There's a little bit of wiggle room, too much wiggle room. In this camera, you can see both of my beehives like that. On the other camera, I'll put the image on the screen, you can only see one of them. So the image is overlapping between them. That's an interesting optical phenomenon I had not really thought about. Just to give you a little bit better idea what's happening and visualizing what I'm seeing in person, I've switched both cameras now to take video, and I'm gonna try to take video, move the cameras around, and then superimpose them on the screen for you so you can see what's happening, because it's really interesting. Sorry about the change in exposures. I guess I should switch these to manual mode. It kind of seems like this idea has maybe run its course and it needs a full redesign to get better results. I still think there's promise though, but maybe we go about it from a different direction. Let me know if you want to see any more of attaching two cameras together. I have other cameras I'm building right now that I'm really excited about. There's one over there, you can barely see it, and some other ones. So I might just spend some more time on that. Let me know what you're interested in. Thanks for watching, and until next time, as always, happy snapping.